Hello and welcome back. This presentation is on sources of power in the work context. By the end of this session, you will be able to understand the perspectives on power within an organization, describe the sources of power, and understand and explain the differences and similarities between power, influence, and authority. They are similar. How are they dissimilar? What is the emphasis that each of them have? Power is a complex conception, conceptually complex, and it has numerous definitions, which you can find in any standard textbook, but I will be giving you some readings at the end. And it is a good idea to go into some of these more detailed readings. Power, the moment you say it invokes in your head a negative connotation. But it is to be remembered that it has a positive aspect to it as well. It can be a motivational driver. It can be a tool. It can be useful in decision making and in many other ways. So it has a positive as well as a negative aspect to it. It is related to the ideas of influence, force, manipulation, control or domination. So we need to understand the concept theoretically and how it differs from influence authority. Pfeffer wrote Managing with Power, Politics and Influence in Organizations in 1992. It is a seminal work. On page 30, he writes, the potential ability to influence behavior, to change the course of events, to overcome resistance, and to get people to do things that they would not otherwise do. Discuss Pfeffer's definition of power to draw out the differences and the similarities between power, influence, and authority. We cannot have a theoretical debate on power without touching upon Foucault's concept of power. Power as condition in society, which is perpetuated through language and knowledge, which is reflected in social practices. This discourse creates rules, which in turn classifies knowledge and activity. The hierarchical framework is thus legitimized. Boundaries are artificially and socially created. Effective socialization enables one to see and understand the world through the discourses one experiences. The discourses reflect the distribution of power in society. The knowledge and the power discourse becomes the basis of behavior, which are difficult to change. Their acceptable conduct, in turn, constructs social identity. He wrote The Archaeology of Knowledge in 1972, Discipline and Punish, The Birth of the Prison in 1977, and in 1984, the History of Sexuality and Introduction. From all these three sources, you can begin to understand Foucault's concept of power. French and Raven's 1959 classification has had a very significant impact on the study and understanding of power. In 1966, they wrote The Basis of Social Power in an edited book named Group Dynamics, Research and Theory. 5 sources or bases of power in society. According to French and Raven, there are 5 sources of power in society, and these sources are: 1. Coercive, which is the capacity to enforce discipline. It is the capacity to enforce something, to achieve something. Reward, the use of resources. The use of resources as rewards. Legitimate, it is subordinates acquiescing. Yes, we will do it. Expert, who have power, which is knowledge. Referent, managers' characteristics perceived as attractive. So they have 5 sources or bases of power in society. Mary Parker Follett, she commented that whether power is good or bad, whether it is sought as means to end or end in itself, most people are, much of the time, trying to get power. In 1995, Graham compiled her writings, and this is a quote from there on page 100. She believed that an organization accomplishes its tasks more effectively by creating more power throughout the organization, not by limiting it to those who have nominal authority within a hierarchical structure. The first requirement for genuine power, rather than merely formal authority, is ability. In her words, we can confer authority, but power or capacity no man can give or take. And genuine power is capacity. She's also called the prophet of management. Now we move on to the concept of influence, which is the ability to persuade rather than force the behavior of another individual. The ability to persuade, influence, rather than control or force the behavior of another individual. There is a subtle difference. It is a softer than the use of power. Uses processes like induction, training, reward, etc. to align individual objectives to those of the management. It is a broader concept. It's a more positive perceptions are around it. It is in tune with persuading, with influencing as persuading. So a difference is one on emphasis. Weber, Theory of Social and Economic Organization, 1947, is a landmark of his. Barnard in 1938, The Functions of the Executive, and Handy 1993, Understanding Organizations. These are all classic collection in management thought. Important works. Authority is the legitimate expression of power. It's formal. It's legitimate. It is power which has legitimate and formal component. I would suggest 3 additional readings: Power, Politics and Organizational Change, Winning the Turf Game by Buchanan and Batham, 2008, published by Sage. Luke's Power, A Radical View by Palgrave is another classic. And Clegg, 1989, Frameworks of Power, again published by Sage. These would give you a much better conceptual understanding of power.